Okay. Hello and Happy New Year, everyone. Hello, Vivek.
Hello.
Vivek and I are really excited about 2026. Lots of the things that we've been speculating about related to where's the future of work going and how is AI going to impact and how it's playing out related to people's fears and the leaders that we work with and the innovators that have been talking about it. So today is all about 10 predictions for more human work in 2026. And of course, our VP of Marketing, Kelly, wrote this for us a while ago. And we're like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then this week I look at it and I'm like, what do we mean by human work? Isn't that what we're always doing? So before I answer the question, what's your perspective, Vivek? What is it we're talking about today?
First off, this is one that we're pretty excited for, since it's about predictions, and like you mentioned, we made these predictions a couple weeks ago, and things change so fast in the world of AI these days that we might have to amend some of them on the fly here on the call. But you can hold us to it at the end of the year, see what we actually stuck to. But to answer your question, when I think about human-centered work, of course, all work we do is human-centered, but the way that I think about the term is we're seeing a big narrative in terms of defensiveness and pushback when it comes to AI solutioning. Companies want to jump on the train before their competitors get ahead. And as an AI company, we, of course, believe strongly in the ability for AI to scale and empower organizations, the people inside of them. But it's important that everybody that's actually using these tools feels that it's something that's going to be of benefit to them, that it's not this black box AI that's for the sake of integrating machines into our process, and that we're thinking about what does it mean for me as a person to use these tools.
Yeah, that's right. So, we know that this is just a perspective, but most orgs don't have an AI problem, right? They have a workflow, a trust, a visibility problem. And I think 2026 is the year that gap shows up in the numbers. So specifically, we're not doing the whole AI is going to replace everyone, although if anyone is here and you've listened to any of our LinkedIn lives before, it is going to change the workforce. And that does mean roles will change and folks will be replaced. But those that are replaced, that upskill, can just have better opportunities in AI. I know I'm the eternal optimist, but that is, my perspective. And so I think that the better question is what becomes possible when AI strengthens people and how work actually gets done. So I have a question for you, Vivek. You've led tech projects that literally have touched 50,000, and I'm not over exaggerating, 50,000 healthcare professionals and over 5 million patients over the years. So when you're in those conversations, what are leaders really trying to fix? And this is a compound question. And how does that relate to what's going to happen in 2026?
I think the core problems that we're trying to fix is people transformation at a large scale, which in a sense is how do we get large amounts of people that might be working on different shifts, on different schedules, in different locations, aligned towards the same vision and values.
Yeah.
And traditionally, there's all kinds of methods for doing this, but we really see the limitations of the traditional, just in terms of how much time we have in the day. And so when we think about this idea of human-centric AI, we're thinking about how do we scale the ideas of clarity, trust, collaboration, psychological safety, and use that to connect people across an organization.
Yeah. So, we're going to talk about several of those. How do we scale trust? How do we eliminate those bottlenecks of productivity? Sometimes it's sludge, and sometimes it's just a lack of communication flows across departments. And frankly, you've taught me a lot about that as we've worked together with organizations doing the organizational network analysis. So I hope you'll talk a little bit about that. But let's move to our First prediction is that AI is really going to be measured now in time returns, as in time returns becomes the productivity metric that frankly actually matters, right? AI is already great. If you're using it, we're creating drafts and summaries and scheduling and some analytics. I worked with a team yesterday and they weren't doing a lot of analytics. They were still using old school methods to map out their analytics. And I'm like, whoa, let's change that fast, right? So, but the real leadership question is, what are we giving people more time for? Right, we're going to save them time, right? Some minimum 2 to 5 hours a week is what's going to happen this year. But a lot of folks are afraid, right? Okay, great. You're going to give me 10 hours back. You're just going to pile on more meetings. What's going to happen here?
That's a great point, and I see that concept reflected a lot in feedback from frontline employees. Uh, so we have multiple layers of defensiveness. First is distrust in AI tooling to begin with, and then second is even if it works, how's it really going to be a benefit to me? It's just going to become more work for me at the end of the day. And so this is not a uh, technology prediction so much as it is a change management prediction.
Yeah.
So it's when we roll out these technologies, how do we make sure that they're rolling out in a way that is going to increase deep thinking, creativity, relationship building? And so the time that's coming back is helping people move from very operational firefighting mentality into higher value kinds of thinking. That's where we think the value in this technology is.
I agree. I agree. We work even in the executive level and the SVP level. I am astounded at how often leaders are still doing a lot of admin work and ops work, and maybe they just don't know how to delegate in some cases, but it's also not taking a moment to say, if I can leverage AI to make my repetitive tasks more automatic and I get to reclaim a few hours, that is going to enable me to bring higher value through thinking, strategy. And as Kelly wrote, where would you most want time back? I know the folks that we work with, it's about strategy, competitiveness, thinking about our people, and our customers. What do they want? How do we adapt? How do we be more agile? And then how do we stay relevant and be innovative? Yeah.
That's a great point. And in fact, it kind of reminds me of why we even came up with this prediction in the first place. And it's something that uh, we learned through our sales calls with clients,
Yeah.
because we learned over the course of the last year. Those of you that have seen our solutions know kind of the value in terms of transforming people across really large organizations. But we found what we're actually selling is the ability for somebody to get their time back in their day.
Yep.
For example, we sell a lot in the healthcare market, and so what we're seeing the value of AI tooling be is not this amorphous concept of time, but for example, in the healthcare space, it is less time spent putting out admin fires, more time spent caring for patients, which is why people are in that job to begin with.
Agreed. Agreed. Let's go to our prediction number 2. Collaboration gets stronger when AI becomes the alignment layer. Boy, do I love this, what is already happening. So I know what I mean by alignment layer. What's your perspective? In the real world, what does misalignment do? Right? Why is this a big deal? Because the truth is, we're almost always misaligned on one thing or another due to lack of communication, lack of clarity, lack of remembering what I agreed to yesterday because there's too many things vying for my attention, right? So what are the tells that a team is working hard but not working together, and how exactly is AI going to become that alignment layer?
Yeah, the way I think about this is if you have two people in the same organization working on different teams, are they experiencing the same company? Are they having the same exposure to the same culture? Or is it like working at two totally different places? That's the easiest way, I think, to visually see misalignment. What that means is that you have teams that are producing towards different goals that may not even have the same page in terms of their processes and operational structure. Um, and then you have messages coming down from leadership that get totally chopped up by the time they're actually being implemented.
Mhm.
And that, from a human standpoint, reflects in people feeling like they're pushing a stone uphill. It is this consistent feeling of things are way harder than they should be. Now, those of you that have seen our network analysis know that we map organizations to understand things like flows of communication, flows of information, and knowledge. And so, when we talk about alignment, we're talking very literally about, is there a connection from knowledge that might start in a boardroom meeting and at a governance committee, and can we see that knowledge flow down all the way to somebody that's implementing at the end of the chain? Traditionally, to get that level of alignment between layers of an organization, that's a lot of meetings, it's a lot of huddles, it's a lot of dependence on mid-level management that might have varying levels of competency. One of the big powers of AI is it can start to scale that level of alignment, because we know people don't just hear a message once in a morning meeting and decide they're going to flip their lives upside down from a work perspective. AI is a way to repeat that message over a period of time and help create that alignment at scale.
Yeah. Yeah. So the key there is, for the first time ever, right? We can actually, and this is prediction related to our prediction number 3. It's really about leaders can finally see how work and communication actually flows, not the assumptions that we make in our head, but how it actually flows, how work gets done. And I think that, some of the research that I did leading up to this LinkedIn Live is really showing that more organizations are excited about just having that kind of insight to say, we don't have to do a buckshot approach to our people challenges or the issues, our bottlenecks. We can actually target in and do a strike force solution that hits those bottlenecks and those islands exactly where they are. Can you talk a little bit about the adoption of, say, network analysis and understanding the benefit of really using networks as a people transformation culture development tool?
This is something we're pretty passionate about. It kind of stems from the idea that if you work with a team day in, day out for a year, you have a very intuitive sense of what is each individual's strengths, what is the team good at, what are the areas where you need outside inputs. That level of gut understanding allows you to make that team really successful, and it creates innate alignment. But it's extremely difficult to have that same level of knowledge across an entire organization, across many different locations, across different shift schedules. And that's where network analysis can come in. It can visually map those relationships and give you that same depth of understanding as if you had worked with those teams day in and day out.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, something I just read on AIHR.com was specifically that the trends are that highlights reports, I should say, that highlight those hidden influencers and those informal networks are critical to change efforts. But most leaders have very visibility into them, thus the word hidden influencers.
That hidden talent is something that we're finding every organization has. And the way that we define that is people who have far more influence over the people that they work with than one would expect for their role level. And those identifying those champions really helps actually move over to our next prediction, which is see how work flows inside of organizations. And it is those, your hidden champions, your hidden talent, that are really determining how work gets done.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to keep going. We do have a question from Cortland Amel, and so I'm going to put that on the screen here. And you are our healthcare staffing. Wait, am I putting it on? Oh, there it is. Can you see it? Aha. With treating patients, how do you meet part 11?
I'm going to give you a bit of a cop out on this one, Cortland, because most of the time with our AI technology, we're dealing with staff. So we're working with most of the time RNs. So we're typically not dealing with EHRs or PHI really in any way. So that it lets us get around Part 11. That said, we do have a point of view on um, uh, solutions that do start dealing with medical records, but it's a much deeper discussion that I'm happy to have offline.
You bet. So I'm going to move that question very briefly into another zone. So, in hospital, large enterprise, what is the biggest, what the heck kind of, or oh wow moment when leaders see their real influence network or their real the islands, what's about to happen that's in black and white? You know, you tell us a little bit about what some of the clients have said.
So typically, when we do this kind of analysis and we show like the reality of how work really flows in an organization, around 40% of that is going to be extremely obvious to those that look at the network. They're going to be like, "Oh, I know that Anissa is a rock star player, and that she is a central source of knowledge for those around her. I know that Vivek is overloaded and might be a single point of failure for a team." But the surprising piece is that other 60%, which is the people who are having massive impact on the network that are unseen from the perspective of the org chart. And so these are, I can give an example from a recent client. One of the most influential people in the organization when it came to emotional support and psychological safety. Somebody that was helping people to feel safe at work. When we see that level of influence, we typically assume that it's some kind of high up leader. And in reality, for this organization, that person was a chef, somebody who leadership was not seeing as having a massive positive influence on those around him, but that is the case. And so when we think about the people we might want to formally empower, when we think about things like succession planning, and we think about where to focus our competency development dollars, understanding those network surprises helps us figure out where to prioritize.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Let's move to one of my favorites. If the last one was one of yours, this one's one of mine, and that's micro coaching at scale becoming normal, the way that we learn. So the key idea here, I'm channeling my grandmother. I just sounded just like her. The key idea is that AI prepares leaders, right, with prompts, feedback framing, follow ups, and coaching becomes lighter, more frequent, more personalized. So I believe this is our year, right? That AI nudges and micro coaching are emerging as core tools. It happens to be one of the core components that we've built into peopletransformation.ai. If I can do a little plug very briefly. So 28 years in the coaching business has been channeled and put into Gia to specifically enable that micro coaching. But here's why it is to me so fascinating. And to experience it myself, like I dial in and get coached myself. I think of it a lot like, a pit crew, not a driving lesson, right? So the micro coaching isn't a 8-hour class. It's not even a 3-hour class on how engines work or whatever. It's a pit crew, right? They jump in during the race, give quick adjustments, and you're back on the track performing better. So we're talking about 3 to 5 minutes in the flow of work when you need it over time to develop that muscle memory. So it addresses the issue specifically related to training. Training alone doesn't work. You got to have hands in the mix. And that is why about 80% of all training dollars is gone within the first month. Well, you combine that skill development with micro coaching, and now you increase it by fourfold. So sorry, I just seized the stage for a moment, but I am excited about it. I've been in this industry for forever, and it does keep me up at night that the work that we do is just lost the moment we walk out the door, and in 30 days, almost all gone. And yet we're still training, right? But micro coaching. So I want to ask you, what are the key?
I've actually had a contact
Go ahead.
since this expertise. You're 28 years doing this.
Uh-oh, Vivek, your microphone just checked in and out for a second.
Nope. Can you hear me now?
Yes, keep trying.
Okay. I was saying in your 28 years in the coaching industry, who are the people that actually get coaching? What are their roles and what are they looking for?
Yeah, so the majority of time when we're called, it is the leaders or HR who are calling to get their leaders coaching, and it's usually your VPs, your directors, and your managers. Occasionally, it's the general managers, and occasionally it's the executives. But what I find is shifting is that the executives that aren't now in the last 6 months, the executives that aren't able to be more agile and adapt to the new way of work and understand how AI can influence how work gets done across the organization, their peers are now getting coaching because they don't want to be that guy. And that's a big shift. And that's also why I think this micro coaching opportunity is going to free up a lot of executives from that gap and that skill gap that many of them know that they have and aren't sure how to fix it, but also to get that skill gap addressed across their teams.
Gotcha. So two of the areas where I think we see AI making a big difference here. First is kind of what you've hit on, which is the idea of there's only so many coaching hours that an executive might get from a pro coach. And we know how valuable coaching is because they keep coming back to you for almost 30 years now. But what happens in those in-between times, in between their sessions? How do we make sure that there is a continuity of what they have been coached on and their ability to actually apply it and to have business outcomes? That's kind of bucket one. And then the second bucket that I see is traditionally coaching is focused on kind of the upper levels of an organization because that's where it makes sense from a price point. But with the power of coaching AI, like Anissa mentioned, Gia, that we've built that takes in this insight of decades of coaching expertise, we can now start to provide that same level of value to people at lower roles where they're still going to have a big benefit where it wouldn't have financially made sense before, but it does now.
Yeah. It is a very exciting time. We're going to be supporting managers without turning us all into robots across the company, so to speak. So let's move to number 5, right? Learning shifts from courses and your LMS checkbox to in the moment enablement. So, when you think about the 2026 L&D research, and it shows how AI agents are embedding learning directly into work, as we were just talking about, but it's about turning training into a measurable driver of real-time performance. And for me, when I think about our clients who trigger their LMS, it's increasing ideas and awareness, but it doesn't translate to on the ground behavior changes.
Yeah, I see that all the time where learning development is considered like a separate disconnected module. So you learn outside the context of what your day-to-day job is. And that disconnect means that every training dollar you're being put in, there's no direct connect to the value that you're getting out. So we've seen leading organizations shift their thinking from that style into learning and development that is very tied to specific competencies and specific work outcomes, where we think the power of AI technology comes in furthering that thinking is now you can have learning that is extremely contextual, based off of the specific issues that a employee on the ground might be dealing with and the specific things they need to learn in order to overcome that issue. And very critically, it can be customized to the learning style of that individual. So no longer do we have these one size fits all LMS modules. We have something that is focused on how Anissa specifically learns best versus how Vivek learns best, so that they can both progress at the pace that's required for them.
That's such an incredible game changer. I want to dive a little bit deeper into it, because conceptually, right, you can put into any LMS, this person is a female and she's been at the company for 20 years, but that LMS doesn't speak to their body of work, their knowledge, their psychometric profile. If we were to talk in just basic terms of, let's say the DISC profile, right? Someone that is an SC is going to have a very different learning and thinking and growing style than someone that is a DC, for example. So I think it's really, oh, thank you, Kelly. I still got that other question on the screen. Good call. Thank you. So let's dive a little bit deeper into what's the big hoo-ha about the fact that, Gia, for example, can talk to me in my language related to, who I am and how I learn and how I show up in the world and the people I annoy and the people I don't, for example.
I mean, first off, I think it's a massive difference just from an adoption standpoint.
Yeah.
The pushback that I'm hearing from users these days is more and more on the idea of, why is AI being shoved into this place where it doesn't belong? I'm tired of using AI when I already have access to ChatGPT, or I don't care about talking to a chatbot or whatever. And that's what your out of the box AI solutions and AI wrapper type software ends up being. But when your interaction is specific to how an individual learns, what specifically they need from a competency standpoint, their psychometric profile, so even the language that's used is something that we know is going to resonate more with that individual, that interaction moves from feeling like, okay, this is a one-way job where I have to ask AI questions and then it's like a glorified database, into this is a true assistant that's helping me become better.
Yeah. You really put something in the spotlight too that leads us to our next prediction, which is psychological safety becomes a design feature. We are going to have enterprises and cross teams that are have AI fatigue, AI this, and this vendor wants to do it this way. And our executive says we can't use any of them, but my IT just gave me, a license to whichever one, right? So I think that we are on target for really understanding that psychological safety is a design requirement. Adoption fails when people don't feel safe asking, experimenting, or being wrong. And the HR trends for years have highlighted the importance of psychological safety. But this is really the first time we're talking about it that I've been talking about it in the frame of whether or not companies and the employees actually adopt and leverage AI.
What do you think psychological safety is when it comes to AI, and how does it differ from how we might traditionally think of it?
When my brain works in metaphors, right? So when I think about psychological safety, I think about oxygen, right? When oxygen is present, I think better, I speak better, I perform normally. Most people don't walk around going, I need a little more oxygen, because it's here, it's present. And we just feel it when someone takes the oxygen out of the room, no metaphor intended, or the same for when safety is not present. Nobody is walking around going, I don't feel safe. Well, I shouldn't say that. There are some that walk around saying, I don't feel safe. But most of
More
us don't
importantly, the
even
people that you would
understand.
hear it from, you don't hear it.
Exactly. No one walks around going, I need more psychological safety. But when it exists, It's the condition that makes all, and I'm not overstating this, when psychological safety exists, it is the condition that makes all other performance possible. And I think that's critical.
We see this reflected in the data. Whenever we run a network map in an organization, we measure for psychological safety. And there's a heavy correlation between people that feel if they were to make a mistake and there's somebody that they could share with and get the support that they need without punitive action, that the technology that they use is being used to improve their day-to-day experience and not as a big brother data collection tool. When people feel psychological safety, there's a direct correlation to not only higher performance, but higher retention. The
Yeah.
people that walk out the door are the people that don't feel safe every day when they come to work.
You
Not
know,
to
and
mention the impact on innovation. If people
that,
don't feel
yeah,
comfortable
exactly.
experimenting, then they're not going to feel comfortable innovating.
Yeah, and safe is one of those words that hardcore drivers, which I'll just own myself. I want to drive for results, but safe is not one of those words that most people really understand in the workplace. This is not about um, pandering to anxiety or other things. It is literally about ensuring that there is oxygen in the room, or trust, right? It's about the indicators that your team feel safe to make mistakes, to speak up, to have opinions, to push back, to be the whistleblower in the organization. And I think with AI, it's really essential. People don't want to make big mistakes when it comes to AI, and so there's a lot of hesitancy in the implementation across the board. But HR in particular, if they're going to initiate this, which I know a lot of HR leaders who are using AI in their everyday work, but they're not championing it across the org the way that they have an opportunity to. One more example of when HR isn't claiming their seat at the table because they could be a driver here. And I see a lot of folks hesitating and waiting for some other executive to say, why aren't we using this for our change management initiative, et cetera? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. When technology falls solely in the hands of this is owned by IT, then uh, we are missing a major piece, which is do people feel safe, comfortable using this tool, experimenting with it? It's the difference between rolling out a new feature and having a cultural change that actually impacts the way that people work.
So moving to go ahead, Vivek.
I was going to say the same thing as you. That moves us quickly to our next point, which is that trust is going to become the competitive advantage, and that it is built through transparency.
Trust. So building on psychological safety, it's to me, that's about trustable AI, right? It's about responsible AI and explainable AI. Yes, I'm going to use a bunch of trending phrases, but it's true. You need to be able to explain how your AI came to that, particularly in certain high governance businesses, financial services type businesses, insurance type businesses, healthcare, right? But I think it's also about ensuring that our powerful but opaque systems understand that AI adoption is going to require that transparent, explainable AI with human oversight, so that employees and customers understand, where's it coming from, how did we get here, and are you just indifferent to the bias that I'm experiencing, or what did one of the AI systems recently literally had a massive problem with, like, porn outputs, in it contextually. Do you recall that? I'm not going to say who it
Yeah, I
was.
do.
Yeah, figured so. So sorry, I digress. Tell me a little bit more about specifically in high risk contexts like healthcare. What does transparent enough look like to clinicians, regulators?
I guess maybe let's start with like what is this concept of like trustworthy AI? Because
Yeah,
I think it's a little bit of a misnomer. Because what we're really talking about is not trustworthy AI. We're talking about people having trust in the humans behind the AI. So in that sense, it's not that different from any other kind of trust building and transparency in an organization. It's just the need for it is that much more amplified. Uh, um, uh, because the experience of interacting with AI is often conversational and uh, um, people can personify that experience. Uh,
yeah,
um, so when we think about transparency, and I won't go too much into the actual security that is required. Eh, Happy to have a security discussion if anybody wants to get into those details. But from a adoption standpoint from frontline users and what they trust, it is far less important, like what exactly the tool is doing, and far more important, uh, um, who is the person that has configured it, and what is the purpose of that. What role is it going to play in my day to day? What's happening with that data and the insights on the other end? What action is going to be taken off it? Do I have to fear any kind of punitive action? Do I have to be careful when I'm using this AI tool because I might worry about something in the future? Uh, um, and so when we think about transparency, what we're talking about is first explainability. Do people have a true understanding of why are we using this tool and what is the actual value going to be in my day to day? And how can I be sure that, to the points before, that this is going to be something that I feel safe interacting with?
yeah,
Uh, um, then the second piece becomes uh, um, what are we actually doing with all of this knowledge and all of this data? AI systems, as we all know, generate tons and tons of data. And transparency there we found is done best as plainly as possible, which is, hey, this is what we are learning in aggregate, and these are exactly the decisions that are being made off of it. You're not going to build trust before people see what you're actually doing with that data. So that when a technology initially rolls out, especially something that is as game changing as someone's day to day as a powerful AI solution, um, it is critical to have really fast feedback loops so that they're not just having to take your word for it. Very quickly, people are seeing what is the experience like of interacting with this tool and what's happening on the other end. That first go around, you may only have 15, 20% of your users have enough trust to actually engage. But if that feedback loop happens really rapidly in the span of weeks rather than months and years, you can now have an internal case study that goes back out to the organization to say, here's exactly how this tool is being used. And we found that builds trust far, far faster than any kind of messaging can because it feels much more authentic.
yep. And that's not difficult to do, right? It is the same change management principles that the science is based on, right? Tell folks what's coming up, tell them how it's going to impact them, get their feedback, launch, tell them how it's impacting them, get their feedback, address the feedback, tell them what they are asking for without asking for. And that's a very difficult prospect without a system of broadcast communications that give people that two-way feedback loop, for example, that we know to be essential. Not old school feedback, AI enabled execution and
There's a
feedback.
big difference.
Big difference. All right. Can we talk a little bit about, and I'm seeing this with clients right now. It's one of the most exciting pieces, and that's our number 8. Organizations are moving from silos, not just in theory, let's collapse the silos, to what we're calling ecosystems, right? AI accelerated partner intelligence and collaboration. So growth is comes from ecosystems, right? Partners, customers, communities, AI maps relationships, opportunities, and friction across boundaries. And the 2026 workforce trends are that highlight that ecosystem thinking but using AI to connect the pieces for us, right? To connect talent, partners, and customers as a key innovation driver. So, what are you seeing related to collapsing silos that AI is going to enable better collaboration, and how are companies achieving this?
I think we're seeing this in a couple of ways. I mean, first from like more horizontally structured organizations, but we see it reflected in the data. So when we are mapping the networks of organizations, we can literally see the silos that take place and how that impacts a bottom line KPI. For a hospital, it might be the bed turnover time for a patient. For another one of our recent clients that's in construction, it was time to get materials over to the job site. And we can see exactly the impact that silos has on that end goal. Now, the trouble in moving from silos to ecosystems traditionally has been now you have a massive merging of vision and culture and values. And how do you know who to reach out to? And how do you get all these people on the same page? This goes back to the alignment point that we were talking about. We can now drive alignment at much bigger scales and much faster using AI to automate that in between messaging that gets people on the same
Yeah.
page. Uh, um, and this kind of leads me to a question. Uh, um, how do you think AI can actually help strengthen relationships? Anissa, because I know a lot of the ideas that people have around AI is it's something that is taking away from our personal interactions. We have a pretty
Yeah.
different viewpoint on this.
Yeah.
We've been building our solution since long before the advent of ChatGPT, so
Yeah.
I think we have a pretty unique view on this. If you wouldn't mind going deeper in detail.
Yeah. So, one thing I recognize in working with leaders is that they'll have a few key innovators that will understand autonomous and agentic AI, and they're typically off on their own building spaceships within their organization, right? Um, but a lot of the leaders themselves only understand at this point generative AI. How do I get my emails managed in using chat gpt, or and if they're doing any agentic AI, it's a small party in a in or Zapier, right? It's not systematic. And if we go back to your question about how does it actually improve relationships, that's where an advancement in the conversational AI is essential. So if I just talk in terms of, say, peopletransformation.ai and what you've been building, right, since 2017, literally, when you look at generative AI, I get to have a one-way conversation. That means I got to know what I want and what I need from the AI in order to have any kind of value come out of it. I need you to write me a birthday song, right? Whatever it is. But when I look at the relationships in an organization, you have to have two-way dialogues, and the advancement of a conversational AI is aggregating those into themes that I now as a manager can see what's going on in my organization. What do my people need at the time of need? I don't want my manager to know that I'm thinking about leaving, but the AI can help my manager know that there's people on my team that are thinking about leaving. And I think that that can build, with the right training and the right setup, right, greater confidence in upskilling in our managers to know, where do I put my time and attention? When we combine that with network analysis, so you've got exactly those who have one foot out the door and those who can help us build greater relationships with a conversation. Our people are using micro learning inside the flow of work. They're troubled by something that a manager is doing, or by the direction, or they have this incredible idea that they've been trying to get someone to listen to. All of that now can be consumed in a way that is funneled up to the decision makers in an coaching framework that helps everyone keep their ear to the ground, know what's going on, and then coach those managers on, okay, what do I do with all this data? what matters, and how do I make sure that I'm responding to my people's needs in a timely manner. It's the first time ever that that kind of clarity can be summed up in a 5-minute conversation once a week when a manager has a conversation with, the right tech. And in this case, I'm talking about ours, but I do believe it's going to change those relationships. And I also believe it's essential for that change to happen, because more and more organizations are going to need to be more agile. They cannot continue to work in silos. They must move towards that adaptive way of working, which is a greater ecosystem, listening to what's happening, having that analytics at scale about what your people need and how to address it.
Yeah, that kind of perfectly reflects our perspective on AI. Whereas we think a lot of AI tooling today is kind of built around the idea of how do we uh, um, replace the lowest cost jobs. The way that we think about the value of AI is much more in terms of how do we scale the value of uh, your most valuable talent.
Yeah.
Uh, and the big difference that we've found that AI can make in terms of building stronger relationships is the things that are really difficult for humans to do. Uh, um, I'm sure a lot of people on the call have heard the stat of it takes 20 times of hearing a marketing message before somebody can act on it. We find that that number is even higher when it comes to internal messaging inside of organizations. That's the kind of thing that AI does a great job at scaling in understanding team needs and then reporting that up to a direct people leader. That's something that AI does a fantastic job at, so that the time that people spend in their face-to-face interactions is much less focused on just data gathering and reminders and the rote kind of stuff, and much more on critical thinking and solutioning.
This critical thinking you're saying, that would be amazing if we could all spend a little bit, more time on that. I always like to ask, folks that we work with, is when they bring up how many times they have to repeat a message. And, I think of one in particular time when an executive we were working with was really frustrated. He's like, I have said this 100 times. And I remember explicitly saying something along the lines of, are you mad that people didn't understand your message? Or are you mad that you had to repeat it 100 times? And he answered, well, I'm mad I have to repeat it. And I said, well, who's responsible for the meaning of your communication? He is. But he didn't hear back from the team. I don't get it. What you want me to do? And now we can collapse that silo so people can say, I don't understand what this means. I don't understand what my role is related to this. And now they can actually take action on it. So I think that's a really big win. And I'll be honest, I think 2026 is going to see more silos collapsing. I think there's going to be some resistance to that, and it may take us a few years before that really gains momentum. But when it does, it's a flying carpet.
And I think that kind of leads us to our last prediction here, which is that the best organizations, leading organizations, are going to become known for how human their AI feels.
Yeah.
Uh, um,
That's
so
so creepy to say out loud.
this one I think is going to sound a little controversial. So
Yeah.
let me explain what we mean by this,
Yeah.
and by how human and AI feels. The way we think about this is when you call customer support and you're talking to a chatbot instead of a human, and it doesn't understand anything you say, and you're just trying your hardest to get connected to an operator. That's the feeling of AI that feels intentionally non-human. It's disconnected from what somebody is actually trying to get done. But then think about an experience where you're trying to get something returned. You talk to a bot, and then that process is done in 15 seconds versus having to have a full interaction. That's kind of the difference that we feel. It's not how human the AI specifically is, but it is the intent and the purpose of an AI tooling. Does it feel like it's actually meant to improve the lives of the human at
That's
the
right.
other end?
That's right. I watch what people say when ChatGPT is empathetic, and for some people, they're like, don't tell me I'm doing great, and for me, I'm like, oh, that makes me feel good. So I understand, that there's going to be some getting used to that. But I do believe if we're going to leverage the problem solving, the productivity increasing, and the life improvements, right, that AI can bring to us. I actually believe there will be people that can truly leverage the power of AI to solve the world's biggest problems, from poverty to cancer and all, anxiety and everything in between. Because for the first time, we have access to unleash our brains in a controlled manner that allows us to build on, what did I just learn, and what about this, and what about this. So I truly believe it's going to change our world in positive ways, not to downplay the predictions that say the opposite. It's going to bring us all to an end. I think that that's important, but I also think that there's a lot of powerful features and benefits that we're going to bring to the table. So back to the human AI part, I do think that we will begin to use it more when we feel like it's a coworker that is here to help me have a better quality of life at home and at work. And I'm fully embracing that. And I think companies that implement their technologies to be a partner and a friend and an empathetic second brain when their employees need it are going to find that their employees will be more loyal, feel better at work, and frankly bring more value to the company.
One of the ways a client actually described this back to me was they think about Gia, our AI agent, as the third-party impartial assistant. So what that means is the way that interaction feels, because it rolled out with the right kind of change management, because people know that when they talk to Gia, they're going to receive value in terms of help in improving their own competencies, not replacing their critical thinking, help in escalating their concerns so that their management can act on it. We find that the kinds of conversations that people have is sharing the kind of insights that wasn't coming out anywhere else. It was not coming out in in-person conversation. It was not coming out through surveying. It is a unique kind of in-between of kind of this anonymized, impartial audience with an interaction that is intelligent enough for someone to feel open sharing.
Yeah. Sorry for the interruption. Agreed. So why don't we do a recap of our 10? So number 1, time returns. How much time do we get back in our lives and at work becomes our new productivity metric. You want to do number 2?
Number 2, collaboration gets stronger when AI becomes the alignment layer.
Agreed. Number 3, leaders finally see how work really flows, not just org charts, but how work actually gets done and where the bottlenecks are.
Number 4 was micro coaching at scale becomes normal.
We'll do a little happy dance on that one. 5, learning shifts from courses in the moment that I sit in front of the computer and I snooze and check the box I did it, to enablement in the moment in the flow of work.
Trust becomes a competitive advantage, and that trust gets built through transparency.
Yeah. I think we skipped one. Number 6 is psychological safety becomes a design requirement, which leads into trust becomes the competitive advantage, or people are going to work with high trust, want to work with high trust managers and high trust organizations.
Thank you. My fault. Number 8, organizations move from silos to ecosystems with AI accelerating partner intelligence and alignment.
Yeah, and I think during our call today, we melded 8 and 9 together. 9 is about adaptive teams replacing static structures. And I think we're seeing that more and more. I'm just going to briefly tap on that. There's sort of an integration role that's happening with AI, right? It's like the chief of staff, where analytics across all pieces come together. But I also see that there's going to be more positions made to help with that integration, that those program managers or transformation leads that become more cross-functional. And I think AI is going to drive that. It's like if we use a research term, it's like the boundary spanner. And we didn't quite go deep into that, but those two, I think, go together, 8 and 9.
Yeah, absolutely. And 10, the one that we worded a little bit controversially on purpose, the best organizations become known for how human their AI feels.
It's going to happen. It's happening. So thank you, everyone, for allowing us to be a part of your afternoon. Vivek and I are in the flow of launching the newest features for peopletransformation.ai and Weave AI. Super excited. In the next month or so, we'll be having some additional demos on LinkedIn Live, etc. Welcome the opportunity to get your feedback and input. And so we've put on the screen QR code. In exchange, we are doing some strategy sessions with clients. What is it you want to achieve? Whether that's with your people development or your AI strategy, and how can we help with it? So reach out. Looking forward to chatting with you. Let us know how we can support you. And thank you for the honor of being with us today. Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you. I see 2 questions. I'll just cover them real quickly.
Oh, good deal. I missed it.
Question from Cortland. How do you ensure that your training materials are not copyrighted if you're gathering from AI? This is a great question. So we think about this in 2 ways. First, from kind of like an ethics standpoint, that being a huge conversation in AI right now. And second, from the standpoint of the AI actually being valuable and not the same experience that you might just get if you talk to Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT. So as Anissa mentioned, she's been in the coaching, consulting, training business for almost 30 years now. We have developed a lot of proprietary content that powers the intelligence of Gia, our conversational agent. So when we think about IP protection and also the value prop of AI, it is not just slapping an AI wrapper on top of any kind of data. It is really about how well integrated is expert developed content into each interaction that the AI is having with users, such that it's providing unique value. So we have a pretty strong viewpoint on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Please.
I was just going to say, and it's about creating the company specific brain using their subject matter experts, right? The successful organizations all have this body of knowledge. And one of the biggest fears is when our people leave, my knowledge capital is going to go with it. And we don't have to let that happen anymore. I'm working right now with an 85-year-old CEO in the manufacturing space. And he has obviously decades of knowledge, and his people are like, we're going to miss his sayings even. And so they're building out the brain in order to take that intellectual property about how the company has grown and its vision and how it's made an impact on the community and putting it into the organizational what do you call it? The intelligence that feeds the micro learning or feeds the change initiatives inside the AI. What do you call that, Vivek?
The knowledge base.
Yeah. Oh, that's a fancy term. The second brain, their knowledge base. Yes. All right. That is what it's called. Suddenly I had a brain, whatever you want to call it. So here, thank you, Cortland, for your questions. That's been very helpful. Let's go to Tina has a question. Will you be sharing a document or posting these predictions so we can revisit them? Hi, Tina. Good to see you. A professional certified coach that's amazing at what she does. So yes, we will be putting this together and we'll put it on LinkedIn. And I'd love to get some feedback on it. These were some pieces that Vivek and I have been formulating over the last year. And we took them from about 50. I certainly had other ones that I was like, oh, Yeah, I guess I was way off on those. So they didn't make it to the final 10. So I'm excited that this resonated and want to know what direction we can go in next that's going to be useful to the folks that join us on our LinkedIn Lives and are connected with us. All right. So I know that Kelly has scheduled us out for our next LinkedIn Live in February. I don't have the date, but reach out. Let's stay in touch and let us know how we can support you.
Thanks for spending this time with us, everyone.
Thanks, Vivek. See you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.